Hello and welcome once again to Crazy Comics and Stories. It's me, your charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard. And at the other end of the series of tubes and wires, and he's here this time.
I am.
Joe, Crazy Writer. How you doing today, Joe?
Not too bad, I guess. You know, I did have to correct you once, even as we record this, because Cory is a week. You don't go to the Minnesota State Fair, do you?
No, I do not.
Yeah, because you said it's next week. No, it's actually, as we're recording this, it actually will be tomorrow. And by the time y'all listening to this here podcast, it'll be chugging along for, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days.
Oh, wow.
So if you happen to listen on our Sunday night podcast.
Which you can be informed about if you either subscribe to us on the iTunes or go to the Facebook's page.
Yeah.
And become a fan. Then you get to find about the Sunday Night Delight, where I put the podcast up just as soon as I get it mixed. Hot off the presses. Still, it's still piping hot and smelling fresh. Just like taking it out of the oven, and like with good bread. When you bake a really good bread and you listen to it, you can actually hear it crackling as it cools.
Unlike bad meat or good cheese.
that probably crackles too, but you don't want to know why it's crackling. Joe, I have decided I need more to do.
Wait a minute. I'm sputtering all over the place. I don't believe it.
Well,
that is fake podcasting, folks.
Nope. It's true. I have a full-time job, full-time office job.
Yep.
I have a part-time job at the group home, and I do like 167 podcasts. Yep. But that's not enough. Joe, have you heard of the All Elite Wrestling?
I have, only because of you.
All Elite Wrestling is a new wrestling promotion owned by a billionaire, the family who owns the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they will be starting on TNT this fall in October. I was extended an offer, and I accepted to be the person who does the recaps on pwinsider.com. So not only will I be writing up the show, basically here's what happened on the show, but I will also be recording audio for each episode.
And of course, for those of us who know PW Insider, of course, is the premier place to go for any wrestling news.
So there you go, kids. I actually wrote up SmackDown last night and did a quick audio for them on it because everybody who normally does it was busy doing other things. And they said, hey, can you write up SmackDown? And I said, sure. Now, here's the thing about writing up the pro wrestling. You want to do a recap so that if somebody doesn't see the show, they know what happened. So you're typing up what happened, and as the wrestlers tell a story in the ring, you're writing that story, and you're trying to write it as fast as they're wrestling. And when there are people who do a lot of the flippy dippy guys who flip around a lot and jump off things and all that, they move pretty fast. I don't type as fast as they move. So I'm basically typing away, and then for the commercials, it's like, oh, thank goodness. Now I can try to catch up, because you have to freeze frame to go back. What did I miss? What's this guy's, what are they doing here? What's in the background? So wrestling show that if I'm not recapping it, like, Raw is a 3-hour show, but I could get through it in about, in 2 hours. SmackDown about an hour and maybe an hour and a half, hour 25. Nope, SmackDown took 3 hours to watch last night. So my Wednesday nights are now filled, Joe. We can't record on Wednesdays anymore. It's New Comic Day, and it's going to be Cory watches the the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega and Cody Rhodes and Jericho wrestling.
Well, while you're busy doing that, I am busy reaching out to our friends and finding out questions from this here podcast that we ask, and usually we have a pretty poor track record of answering. But in this case, we actually got a response. And this actually has to do, we were talking a while back about Free Comic Book Day. And there's HalloweenFest that's coming up, and local comic store day, all these other things. And so I talked with our good buddy Tim up in Granite City Comics. And again, this is unique to his store, a bigger store like the Source. I don't have a in at the Source anymore that I can ask. But we asked him, we all know how big Free Comic Book Day is, but how does HalloweenFest draw? Does it draw as much business? How about local comic store day? How do you order for these events if you participate in them? And Tim replies that the HalloweenFest or Halloween Comic Fest or whatever it is barely a blip on the radar. He says he orders in maybe 20 books across all that are offered, compared to over 6,000 for Free Comic Book Day. He puts the books out for anyone that comes in. Most have no clue it's Halloween Comic Fest. They did push it big the first year it came out with a sale and ordered a bunch of books, but it didn't have any blip on the sale radar. It says local comic store day is kind of a joke. You have to pay just to be able to order any of the books in. They're just normal books with a special cover and a really bad discount. It's like $50 to $75 to be able to order stuff. There's a Batman Day that's just a money grab for DC. A lot of people don't know they're doing it until the books show up on the final order cutoff thing. And then you get I think he pushes this year, it was like Batman Nightwalker were like 25 cents a piece. Batman Who Laughs #1 was 25 cents a piece. He orders a few for the shelf just to have them, but he says they don't really make an event out of it. So again, that's from Tim. I'd be curious, any other comic retailers out there? I don't know if any listen to the show, but I'd like to hear what you do if this makes a difference. I know if I ordered them, obviously Free Comic Book Day, even when I had Crazy Comics, that day, as a little shop as I had, I made as much on that day as I did the entire week. I have no idea what it would have been, with a big store like when I had Hot Comics. The Halloween thing, I probably would have either taken home and given out if Halloween was like on a Saturday, Sunday, and I'd be closed. On days I was open, kids would come by. I'd give them a free full-size comic. Well, I was going to say candy bar, but then I'd also give them age-appropriate comic books and probably do that. Local comic store day. Do you even know of that, Cory? Have you heard about it?
I hear about it from time to time, but I never hear anything other than, oh, it's local comic shop day. And all I can think is, well, what's the difference between that and Free Comic Book Day and Halloween Fest?
Yeah.
What's the big deal?
I think it's supposed to be like Record Store Day, where they have exclusive releases only available at your local record store. But in this case, comic books generally are only available at your local comic store. And unless they're doing very specific, very interesting ones, it's probably not even a blip. I mean, I see some of these books stocked up. These are local comic store day books. I did pick up one that was a Doctor Who photo cover, and I brought it to the counter, and they rang it up on the computer. This one came up $50. I'm like, what? For a single? Is it like a super rare variant? And what it was is Doctor Who comics with the new Doctor came. You got all the variant covers plus a special one for $50 in a bundle. And I think what the Source did where I bought mine is they cut it up and they were just selling the books. And then that one just happened to get there because there's no price on it. It's just $50. So I'm like, whoa. They did drop it to normal price, $4 or $5, and I've got it or I sold it. I don't know. You know me. I don't know what I do with stuff. So there you have it. A question answered. And if you have ever heard of a question that We've
We
never
haven't answered.
answered. Yeah. Just let us know what we got. We'll get our crack staff on it, and we might need some crack for our staff because with Cory having his bazillionth job and me not really having much of a job, I guess we could probably use all the help we could get.
I think we could use all the help we could get, no matter what.
So spread the word. Let people know about our podcast. We love you. We do.
All kinds of news going on, by the way, in the world of the comic books.
Yeah. The first one I got on, and I think you saw it. Apparently, Loot Crate has given up the ghost.
Yes, Loot Crate is gone. And one of the things I wanted to point out, it's been quite a while since Loot Crate actually did one of their comic things, but there for a while, like Star Wars #1 sold 1 million copies. I would believe that at least 3/4 of that was for Loot Crate, because there was another Loot Crate book like a year or two later that neither of us had heard of that sold like, what, 500,000 copies. And we found out, Loot Crate was giving it in their was giving it away in their thing. And it also, I don't think it affected sales, because I remember that one as being, it sold 500,000 copies, and then the next issue it sold like maybe 10,000 copies, and then it's canceled so long ago I don't remember even what it was.
Yeah, I do know occasionally we do get people donating that stuff for the charity booth, which is always cool because it's always fun to see what sells. And of course, although we're not doing the charity booth at the Fall Comic-Con, the One Day Wonder, which will be October 5th, 2019, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. at the Minnesota State Fairground in the State Fair Education Building.
Because you need to get educated.
And as far as I know, the tables are sold out. I believe the guests have been filled. You can go to www.mcbacomiccons.com to check out what's online. You can send them a quick note. They always have a standby list in case people have to cancel because life happens. And I will be there. Well, I think I'll be there with Gruber. We'll sit at the front door for a few hours. So if you do want to bring something for charity and you do want it for this here tax year, just let me know. I'll bring a tax form, or at least get your address and mail it to you. So,
I have a question, Joe.
Okay.
The State Fair starts tomorrow, right?
Correct.
Now, I've only been in the Education Building when there's a comic convention there. It used to be that's where the 2-day convention was, and then the 1 day was in a smaller building, but the 2-day grew. What is in the Education Building during the fair?
Well, education, of course. Basically, all the local colleges and trade schools and prep schools set up information there. So if you've got a kid heading to college, or you are as I say, you want some adult education, you could go there, talk with people.
Is that like adult movies?
Not quite.
Oh,
but
I need to learn how to French kiss.
Yes. Well, you don't know any French people anyway, so.
That's true.
But that's where you would go. There's always buttons, pins. I mean, I remember going there in high school, checking out the different colleges, getting information. And you go through it. I don't know if you remember when they had the stage. I think we did the art auction there one year. There's actually people playing music there, and then it ties into the 4-H building where there's crafts, things like that.
Floor, right? On
the
second floor? Is
the
second where they do that? Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah, it goes up to the second floor, and
that was the one thing, because the panels used to be on the second floor. And they had, they had a stage and everything. And then the panels, when they moved to the grandstand, they just basically put up a bunch of barriers, and the panels are behind the barriers.
Yeah. And now they're up on the second floor because it's quieter. They have that big area. Yeah. And they have that big area where, you can get up there by elevator if you're having problems with mobility. You can get to it from the outside. And they do the art auction up there. They have the panels up there. So a little quieter, and you can actually hear what's going on. So they're making better use of some of the space there. And then, of course, on the second floor, they still have the games and fun things like that when the big 2-day comes a knocking about.
The 2-day comes?
Yeah.
busting in like
The-
like like gangbusters.
Now, did you see the last Spider-Man movie?
Yes, I did.
Well, good, because that's probably the last good Spider-Man movie you'll probably see.
I'm
Because
gonna fight you on that one.
I hear, well, I just hear two big corporations can't agree on how to split the pie, because everybody's on the Twitter machine, on the Facebooks, on the interwebs, crying that Sony and Disney, their golden deal they had where they can share the universe and make billions of dollars is kind of broken down on how to slice the pie or pay for the pie, or there's pie involved there somewhere.
Hi.
So, again, I would look at Sony's track record.
Oh, you mean Venom? Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse?
No, I'm talking about the guy who when they rebooted after Tobey Maguire and nobody really cared. At least not enough.
And again, the last two Spider-Man movies from Sony are Venom, which made a lot of money, and Into the Spider-Verse, which was probably the best Spider-Man movie made.
Yeah.
That's why I disagree that, there won't be any more good ones.
Sony's got, well, yeah, maybe animated, but so Sony's got a little belly full of money and they're like, we can do it alone. Rather than hang tight and do such fun things like, let's see Spider-Man and Daredevil team up, or let's see Spider-Man and Deadpool finally team up.
There's more to this story. I think I sent you an article from the website IO9, which is a fairly respected science fiction blog, where Kevin Feige actually helped out on Venom. He's the producer on the Disney side. He helped out on Venom, and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse didn't get any credit. And he basically said that, he wanted a little more credit. And then Disney said, we will we'll share the costs with Sony. If we get, we'll half the cost, but we want half the profit. Whereas the current deal was that Disney would get 5% of all money that the movie brought in. So there is a big part of me that thinks that this is just negotiation tactics. It's like 3 years ago when David Lynch said, well, I guess I'm out of the Twin Peaks revival. The Showtime's not going to give me what I want, so I guess I'm out of it. And, he came back. Or on The Simpsons when Harry Shearer went, well, I quit. I'm done. Fox isn't going to give me what I want. It's a negotiation tactic. Nothing is over until it's over.
I see. I got a picture here of a Mickey Mouse walking away with a Spider-Man costume in the trash can. And if you know Amazing Spider-Man 50, you know the iconic image I'm talking about.
Yeah, but that's something a fan made.
Yeah. Although what's the name of the actor? I can't remember that plays Spider-Man.
Tom Huddleston. He is signed for 2 more movies, and the director is signed for 2 more.
No, this is serious. He unfollowed Sony.
Oh, Jesus God.
Getting thick out there. So that's all I got for news. How about you? What's got you up in arms?
Sales figures for July are out.
Oh, I thought you were going to go with Miracle Teenager Survives on His Own for almost 6 hours with no Wi-Fi.
Number 1 book last month, House of X #1. Number 2 book last month, Power of X #1. House of X got 185,000 in sales. Power of X got 167,000 in sales. Walking Dead 193, the last issue, 111,000 in sales.
How did that end, anyways? Have you read it?
Yeah.
Throw up a spoiler alert. I want to hear it.
Well, as you know, in 191, Rick was shot. In 192, he died.
You mean he's not coming back for the movies?
This is a comic.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, comics different continuity. So in 193, we jump way ahead, where Carl is grown up, has a wife and kids, and zombies are rather rare. And somebody comes through town. Basically, they're doing a traveling show where they show off zombies. And Carl kills them. And
the zombies or the people with the zombies?
The zombies.
Okay.
So he is put on trial for destroying this man's property. And we basically see what has happened in the, I would say, 10, 12 years since Rick died. It's a really good ending. It fits perfectly. It's not the ending I would have gone with, because I think all zombie stories need to end on a downer note, because I'm a George Romero guy. And Robert Kirkman said when he first thought up the series, it was going to end with them getting to Alexandria. And that's where, Rick would talk about how we've created, now we could create, blah, blah, blah. And then they would have this, they would end the series by showing the statue of Rick. And then it would pull back a little farther and you'd see the statue's not in great shape. Pull back a little farther and you'd see that Alexandria's fallen apart. Pull back a little farther and you'd see a zombie walking through Alexandria, just alone. And while the end of Walking Dead was a very good ending, I like the original ending better, because think about Night of the Living Dead, or Dawn of the Dead, or Day of the Dead, or Land of the Dead. The ending of a horror show should be something showing that the horror was kind of real.
Do they ever explain where it come from?
Yeah. No. Where zombies come from? No, they never explain it.
Okay. I know the big reveal in the show was the first season that whatever it is, we've got it in us.
Yes. Well, they revealed that in the comic too.
Okay, but they never reveal what it come from.
No, and Romero never did either. In Night of the Living Dead, there's something about, a probe from Venus has landed on the Earth and it may have brought a virus, but that's never mentioned in Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead. And Romero said that was just, news. TV news has to fill time. So, to me, one of the biggest stories of the week is one that you're not going to hear from many people. How DC's doing these young adult graphic novels. They're breaking into what they call the young adult market. The first one, Teen Titans Raven, is now on its third printing.
Sell those first printings. They're going up in value.
Well, it didn't sell very well in comic shops. It's in its third printing. Is
this a book or a comic?
It's a graphic novel.
Okay.
But it's in that same format as the Renee Telmager books, or Captain Underpants, or Dogman. Those. The other big news to me, G. Willow Wilson and the artist Leon, they won the American Book Award for Ms. Marvel Volume 9. That is a huge deal. That's a major mainstream award. And Ms. Marvel won for that. I actually had somebody message me earlier today. They were looking for information on, are comic sales falling apart? No, comics are leaving the comic shops. And these are two examples of how that's working. We'll get to more of it when we get into freaking and geeking. But there's so many signs that comics are, if you look at the entire market, comic sales are doing better than they have. They just keep ramping up. It's just in comic shops, sales are down about anywhere between 2 and 4% for the year. But outside the comic market, they're going up by double digits. So I think all this talk about how comics are falling apart. No, they're just realizing that the comic shops basically sell to a certain type of consumer. Us, the Wednesday Warriors, the people who come in every Wednesday because we're programmed to do it. We come in every week. We want us our soap opera superhero books. But people who buy regular books don't come into comic shops, and comic publishers are learning how to hit those people. Another thing that I did not realize, and I'm kind of surprised you didn't know it, you need to work on your connections over at Dynamite, Joe. Because Vampirella #1, their relaunch of Vampirella, is their best-selling book of all time. It sold 77,000 copies, and they put out a big old press release saying that this was their best-selling comic of all time. So I guess relaunching Vampirella every couple of years is helping their sales too. And whenever anybody says, "Oh, why do companies keep relaunching when they get new creative teams?" Before the relaunch, Vampirella was selling around 10 to 12,000 copies. So there's that. In July, comic sales in shops were up 7% year to year. I haven't even looked. What are the top-selling graphic novels for July?
Walking Dead, Smile, Walking Dead, Walking Dead, Walking Dead, Walking Dead, Walking Dead.
Joker, that Joker trade paperback, Black Label. Remember the Bad Weekend that I talked about? The story in Criminal about basically it's a crime story set in the comics world. That came in at #2. Let's see. They Called Us Enemy. Joe, what is They Called Us Enemy?
Is that a video game? I never heard of that.
Yeah, you have. George Takei.
Oh, the book about him in the
internment
concentration camp as a kid.
That came in at #4. Dear Justice League, another one of the young adult books, that came in at #6. And those are really the ones that are kind of big. One of the things I like to do is look at the omnibus sales. So the highest selling omnibus was Conan the Barbarian, the Marvel Years, 2,430 copies. That book was $125 each. So I'm going to do some math. I know. You were told there would be no math. So let's see here. Carry them 1, divide by 14. So Marvel, with a Conan reprint, made $140,000. Joe? Do you know why Marvel's putting out these omnibuses?
Because they can. And they don't come back. Because they're only through the direct market that I'm aware of. So that's money in the bank.
So let's go up to their best-selling trade paperback, which was the Miles Morales. That sold 2,000, it sold around 3,000 copies. That was, let's see, $17.99, so $18. Take that times 45. That only made $24,300. Joe's talked about this on the show a lot. That's why Sears would rather sell you a refrigerator than 50 hammers.
Yeah.
Those big books that Joe and I love, they're making enormous amounts of money. So that's why there are more and more of them every month. Oh, there's a new Princeless. That's a book that you like, right?
A new what?
Princeless.
I don't recall.
I thought, that's the one about the princesses who don't need a prince to save them.
Oh, yeah. I mentioned that, yeah.
So those are the big ones that I see. I always like to go down. What is the 500th book on the graphic novel chart? Let's see. Teen Titans Go, Volume 5, sold 178 copies. So they got that going for them, which is nice. So there we go. There's and you're a toy guy, right?
Of course.
Hasbro has acquired the Ghostbusters toy license.
Dun, 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 dun.
Any other news that we should get into?
Nothing I can think of.
Okay. And you're going to talk about your trip up north in Freaking and Geeking, right?
Maybe.
Maybe.
I haven't decided.
Mm-hmm. So you've been reading any? Did you read any comics while you were away? Because
Nope.
you were gone last week.
Nope. I don't read comics. I bring them. I just never read them because I went to I was on the North Shore. I was up in Ely, Minnesota, Burnside.
You didn't sit in a nice chair
nope.
out in the nice weather with a big old comic book and a quart of cherry Coke.
Nope.
And a big old bag of peanuts.
Nope.
And did you even have a vacation?
Yep.
Because to me, if I'm not doing that on a summer day, it's not summer yet. Did you read any comics over the last couple of weeks?
Yes.
Well, would you like to tell us about one of them?
I could. Are you saying these are our reviews?
Well, we've basically been doing catch-up because, for the listeners, we only had 1 week off, but in reality, we were off for like 3 weeks.
Yeah. So well, the first ones I picked up was kind of interesting because it's from Avatar, and it's called Stitched by Pat Shand and Daniel Gate. And it's basically a horror book. They advertised all 3 of them at once, and I got 1 and 3 in one shipment and 2 in the last, so I was able to put them together. It's kind of weird because it starts out and kind of gives you the premise. It's basically the Stitched are an ancient undead evil. There's a cursed black liquid that fills the mortal shells that have had all their openings sewn shut. And this is an Avatar book, so we're talking all the openings. You figure it out. It takes their life, mummifies their body, and then they respond to only one thing: the sounds of rocks in a can, and that sets them on an indiscriminate killing rampage. They feel no pain. They don't lose limbs. You can shoot them, burn them, crush them. Actually, you can blow away limbs. No avail. They will not stop till the sound. So basically, you know what's going on before it gets there, which I thought was an odd way to start it. But once you start reading it, this reads as a pretty good. You could almost imagine this as a horror movie because there's only 3 issues. It's done in 3. You got the first part is comic, and then you have a bit of a story where they describe. It's a standalone story dealing with the Stitched, and then there's a gallery, which is okay, but I guess I could have used something else. I'm not big on filling comic with some, tons of gallery. There's dozens of different covers. The ones that were available when they solicited were just the regular covers, so I picked those up. And as a 3-issue read, if you're into horror, and I'm usually not, I actually enjoyed this pretty good. I thought it was an interesting premise, even though it kind of gave it away at the beginning. I could see them making a movie out of this. Sometimes I wonder if that's why they do things like this, to just, hey, here's our premise, let's make a movie. Netflix, are you listening? Hulu, anybody? So if you are into the terror genre, I would definitely recommend going out and trying to find these. A little expensive, but for what you get, it's not a bad package. It's like I said, the story is compelling. I mean, once I read the first issue, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm glad I had all 3. I was able to read it. And then you can sit back and then read the prose with the artwork, and an interesting concept, a little switch on the zombie stories. And again, I bought it, so I can't even say big, borrow, or ignore. But if you are prone to horror, look for this one. Might be tougher to find because I don't know a lot of stores that buy Avatar indiscriminately. So come get some.
I took a picture of the next book I'm reviewing, Joe.
Well, good. It might last longer.
Last Friday, it was Box Day, and I opened my box, and in it was Kirby Returns. And Joe, I think you saw the picture. Kirby Returns is one of those great big, you could use it for a door Marvel books. This is basically what they consider the best of his return to Jack Kirby's return to Marvel in the 70s. It has the first 3 issues of Black Panther. It has the Arnim Zola story from Captain America, the first 4 issues of Machine Man, and 4 issues of Devil Dinosaur. Sadly, because of licensing reasons, they were not able to put in any of his 2000 AD, which I thought was tremendous. And as I'm reading the book, all I could think is, if they did the 2001 Treasury in this format, I might not ever need to read anything else ever again. Yes, these are reprints, but it's at a bigger size than they were even drawn at. And I love this book for 2 reasons. One, the art is so much bigger. You can see the detail. You can see all of the stuff that Kirby was putting into it. And the funny thing is, I'm reading the Black Panther story again. And I remember I read it when it came out. And then they did a masterwork of it. And it's still, those first 3 issues, Jack has just thrown so many ideas at you that it's hard to keep up. It's just nonstop action from page 1 with, aliens from 6 million years in the future, to King Solomon's tomb, to this whole group of people who fight over collectibles, to battles between airplanes. It's just, how can he fit all of this into these 3 issues? But the other thing about the size of the book is there are times when it completely engulfs you. One of Jack Kirby's 2-page spreads, it's almost like 4 feet wide. And there aren't a lot of artists whose art can fill that sort of space, that panoramic view. If you're a Jack Kirby fan, they've put out, 3 of the, 4 if you count the Galactus book, which also has a story by John Buscema and John Byrne. But they put out a Kirby is Fantastic, which has his Fantastic Four stories, Kirby is Mighty, which has his Thor stories, and now Kirby Returns. If you're a Kirby fan, you need to get at least one of these books. Yes, they're really expensive, but they run about between 300 and 400 pages. They pick out the best of his stuff that looks the best at this huge size, and you can see the detail in the art. That, some of the stuff, even when it was originally printed, you couldn't have seen the detail that he was putting into this stuff. And I would have picked up Kirby is Mighty, but it was inked by Vince Colletta, so I would have just been mad at all the stuff that had been erased. But on the buy, borrow, or ignore, for me, this was a buy. If you're a Kirby fan, it's a buy. If you're not a big Kirby fan, you don't know his work that well, if they've got it at the library, borrow it. Just, or even just get, how the library has tables, set the damn thing down on a table, because you'll need that much space to read it. Joe?
The next one is from Cave Pictures Publishing, called The No Ones. And let me flip it open and find the credit. It's created and written by Jim Kruger, art by Will B. The concept, and again, these are new issues, so I'm not going to get too deep into it because, I don't like to spoil things. But essentially, you have a group of heroes, and you're introduced to them quickly. And as things happen, something bad happens. They're not quite sure what, but all of a sudden nobody remembers them. And it's not that nobody remembers them, it's just they don't remember you right after they save someone. So they may pull you out of somebody out of a fire, and they go, "Don't worry, I have you." And as soon as you got them, "What are you doing here? What are you doing?" Imagine when your parents don't remember you from last night's dinner. "What are you doing? Why are you in our daughter's room? Who are you?" "It's me, Mom. Don't you remember?" And the no ones figure this out. They don't know why it's happening. They have an idea why it's happening, and they decide, what are we going to do about it? There's a new group of heroes that is taking their place. Their headquarters is gone. Even when they save somebody, that person doesn't remember them the minute they're saved. Group decides, you know what, we could do a lot of good because we can go in and do things and no one's going to get mad at us. We could take out dictators. We could feed starving people. We could change things for the better. And somebody else like, no, we need to go back and figure out what happened. So far, there's 4 issues of this out that I'm aware of. I've got the first 2, and I don't recall if it's a miniseries or not, but the art is a little harsh because I think you complained about this on a rant on your Facebook, Cory. It's very dark. It's like everything takes place at night. Even during the day, things are dark. Faces are sort of obscured, but there's enough differencing in the costumes and the hair and the expressions where if you pay attention to the introduction on who these people are, you'll know who they are. Despite that, I just kept reading, and by the time I got to the first issue, the hooker, the clincher, the cell, I just had to pick up the second one and read through it. And I don't recall if it's a miniseries or not, but you can go to cavepicturespublishing.com or run to your local comic store, the No Ones.
Next book I have on my list is from Morrows Press. It is the Chronicle of American Comic Books, which I have praised before. They have put out a new book, 1940 to 1944. This is kind of the beginning of the golden age. Superman and Batman and Marvel Comics #1 have already come out by the time 1940 arrives. But there aren't a lot of comics being published, and most comics are still reprints of comic strips. This goes into how rapidly comic publishing exploded in 1940. It's one of those things where I knew comic publishing kind of ramped up really fast, but I had no idea how fast, because they go through things month by month, publisher by publisher, and it's just amazing at how fast everything started and how quickly they would change things. An issue would come out 3 months later, the second issue would come out with a completely different group of characters and creators, just throwing crap against the wall. It goes into the behind the scenes stuff of the different studios that were producing these comics for publishers. In a lot of ways, the studios like the Eisner Iger studio or Funnies Incorporated would just create, here's a book, they'd get it to the publisher, and the publisher would then publish it as, quote, theirs, unquote. The problem I have with this book, it is different from the other Chronicle of American Comic Book volumes, is that this one is really dry. This one is very much for the historically minded because it doesn't turn these things into a story. There are sequences in it that just are like a checklist. And in this book, this character was drawn by this person, and this character was drawn by this person. This character was drawn by this person. This character was drawn by this person. Then in the next issue, this character by this. Whereas in the others, they kind of make it a story in giving more, they give more behind the scenes stuff, more historical context. This almost, this is more academic. It reads more like somebody's master thesis than a entertaining book. So out of all of the chronicles of the American comics, this is one that I would put as a borrow rather than a buy, simply because it's more of a listing than a story. And it's a shame because I would say that especially the book about the 70s makes comic publishing in the 70s into almost a novel. And this is more of a academic exercise. So I would say for people like me, you know, the comic historians, it's a buy. But for the, I would say sort of the little more casual fan like Joe, it's in either borrow or ignore, depending on how interested you are in the period from 1940 to 1944. Joe?
The next one on my pile is from, I believe it's H1. I'm trying to think of the humanoids. It's called Ignited. And
the Mark Waid book.
Yeah, Mark Waid. I'm going to slaughter a few names here. Kwanzaa Osage Yeffel. They write the script, and then art is by Phil Bryan-ness, I guess. And hey, guys, call us. Let us know your right pronunciation of the name. But there starts out, Mark and Kwanzaa say this one was not easy to write because it's about the aftermath of a domestic terror attack on a school, a handful of survivors, and as they slowly discover they've got power to affect change on a radical level. The Mark Waid, I don't know who to give credit to on this one. Mark Waid, Kwanzaa, but it reads very well. I mean, these are obvious comic professionals. The story flows very well. The characters are drawn well, where you're able to follow them. It's compelling story. You get a lot for the price. It's almost all story. Then there's a little 2-issue Life of an Ignited, Day in the Life. And then those always go into another book. You get a couple page previews of some other things. As a series, this is very, very interesting. I mean, one of the biggest problems when you have a group book is here's everybody, deal with it. And some fails, the story, like in the last one, the No One's, compel me enough to continue reading it. In Ignited, everybody's revealed slowly, although you do get a lot of revelation going. It's does not glamorize a shooting in any way. Matter of fact, one of the big things is the way the kids feel versus the way the adults feel. And I don't know how long this is going, if this is an ongoing or a mini series, but I'm in for the haul on this one. And it does tie into some other ones. I'm sure in upcoming reviews, I'll be picking up on it. So far, 3 issues are out. Plus, there was also a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive if you're so inclined to get that. And I would imagine a graphic novel's on the way. This might read better as a graphic novel, especially if you're having trouble finding it. But I definitely put this one on a recommended buy list. Superhero stories, but done very differently, which I am really getting to appreciate more and more as well. You know, I've been reading for a long time. So if you can tweak my interest with something new, and basically Mark Waid, whatever you write, I'm following. So that's easy enough sell for me. What else you got on your stack of stuff, Mr. Strode?
The next one is not a comic, but it might as well be. It is the Spider Doom League, which is the first in the Wild Adventures of the Spider. The Spider was a pulp character. He was probably the 3rd most popular pulp character, the first being the Shadow, the second being Doc Savage. The Spider was a pulp character, and while a lot of people keep bringing up the Spider, the Spider-Man costume from the 50s, that, Stan Lee stole it from there. No, Stan even said in the 30s, not in the 30s, in the 70s, that the idea came from reading pulps and the Spider, Master of Men. The Spider was basically best known for being one of the most violent of the pulps. Hundreds of thousands of people would die in a Spider novel. There have been Spider comics. Tim Truman did a 3-part miniseries. Other people have done them. This is the first of a new series of Spider novels. That's why it's called the Wild Adventure. And this is a team-up between the Spider, G8, who's another pulp character, and Operator 5, which was another pulp character. The plot is that some bad guys from the First World War have decided that they are now in New York City. They've got this plan to take revenge on the people of New York, but a meteor crashes in Central Park. It has a weird effect in that if you get too close to the radiation, you lose your mind, and basically your eyes start glowing green, and everything you look at catches on fire. And anybody who gets close to the meteor, this happens to them. So they take advantage of this. This is a fun, violent book. Again, dozens of people die in horrible ways. Macy's, this is set in the 30s. Macy's burns to the ground. The other thing I really like about this book is if you don't take it seriously, by the 5th page, the writer has pushed the gas pedal all the way to the floor with the action, and it never lets up. This is not a book where you've got an action sequence, and then everything slows down, and an action sequence and everything slows down. Nope, this is like an old pulp where after everything is established, you just get action all the way through. It's available from Amazon. It is written by Will Murray, the creator of The Unbeatable Squirrel Girl. And he's written tons of other pulp books such as The Destroyer. He's written all of the new Doc Savage novels. He's writing all the Spider novels. He's done a crossover between Tarzan and King Kong, which is available out on Amazon. This one is a definite buy. If you like your action adventure novels, if you like your pulp novels, you need to be buying this one right now. Joe, we got time for one more.
One more. Oh, and I read so much. I will choose a book that we talked about, and finally it came out, and by Gumby, it delivered. From comicsahoy.com, Second Coming, #1.
I love that book so much.
Yeah, I finally got my copy. Did they do second prints on this sucker already?
Yes.
I think they did.
We're up to 3 prints.
Yeah. So it's not too late to jump on board. This is the one, Too Hot for DC. Basically, Jesus comes back to Earth and is paired up with the superhero, kind of a Superman type character. And I could see where people would be mightily pissed off at this guy if they weren't secure in their own faith, because he has some definite views on God, how God views things, definite views on Jesus. I mean, Jesus kind of pokes his hole down at Earth and goes, "Hey, I'll go give it a shot." And God's like, "Go ahead, I'm fed up with these guys. Thanks, Dad. I won't let you down. Good for you, boy. Show them who they're messing with. That's right, bitches. Son of God coming through." And I'm pretty sure y'all know the story of Jesus. I don't have to recount it here, but needless to say, 4 pages later, let's see how the boy is doing. What? 33 years? You only lasted down there for 33 years? I was down there for a millennia. Anyways, I've enjoyed this book. I mean, I'm not going to be super offended by much, and so for me, I was really curious as to see what the fuss was about. I do not advise this for anybody who isn't very secure in their faith or gets offended easily. But for me, and I'm going off the first issue, I absolutely love it. The art is awesome. The storyline is very compelling. You get enough reading in a single issue to make it worthwhile. I've always talked about, like, back in the day, you'd get when Bone was wrapping to its conclusion, you had some, and even Cerebus, when he was flying off in outer space after being knocked off the mountaintop or whatever, there were issues where you read them in like 2 minutes because there were no words. It was just all action, all art. These have a good combination of both, and consequently, with what Cory said, they're on a 3rd print. You can still jump on board and get going. I hope Ahoy does a graphic novel. I don't know.
Oh yeah, they always do.
Okay, good. So if you're prone to do it that way, do it. But for me, yeah, I was very happy and finally get to read what all the fuss was about. So how about you, Mr. Strode? What would be your final pick of the day?
The last pick I have is one that came out a while ago. I picked up the trade paperback, and that is Marvel Knights. It's the 20th anniversary of Marvel Knights, so they did a special mini-series. Each issue was scripted and drawn by a different artist. but the entire story arc was plotted by Donny Cates. We start with Daredevil waking up in a world where he isn't a superhero. And he gets in trouble and is arrested by the cop Frank Castle. And on and on and on. And we get this wonderful mystery using the main characters that were part of Marvel Knights 20 years ago with Daredevil and Elektra and the Punisher. It's just a great mystery. The art is very reminiscent of those early Marvel Knights where it's that almost hyper-realistic art. And you are putting together the puzzle with Daredevil. It's, they've done this sort of story before. I've read different variations on it over and over and over. Even famously in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I don't know if you watched the episode where she found out, she woke up and realized that all of this stuff about her being the Chosen and there being vampires was a delusion. And she was in a mental institution. And when they ended the episode, they never really said if that was quote real or not. The solution is rather clever, but it's a celebration of what they did with Marvel Knights 20 years ago. Fun miniseries. I'm going to call it a buy because I enjoyed it. If you're feeling nostalgic about the Marvel Knights stuff from 20 years ago that in a lot of ways saved Marvel Comics, well worth your time. And at the end of the day, it's just a great Daredevil story. And it goes back to the issue, the thematic differences between Daredevil and the Punisher. The Punisher is about revenge. Daredevil is about justice. And that's the theme that goes through the entire miniseries. Could not have loved it more. Was very surprised because when they announced it, it sounded like, I don't want to bother with this. But I did pick it up cheap when we were on one of our comic shop runs and was very pleasantly surprised. It's a buy from me. You know what else you should be buying, Joe?
Pumpkin spice spam coming out soon.
Well, that's not out till the middle
Whopper
of September.
Impossible Burger?
I've heard that it really depends on how they are cooked because if they're cooked too long, they turn into hockey pucks. No, it's these guys. They have stuff, and they're our sponsors. Promotional consideration is paid for by the following sponsors. Our first sponsor is DreamHost.com. DreamHost.com has been with us since the beginning. They're the best web host in the whole known universe. And if you need a web host, and you do because, Facebook, Google+, everything gets hacked. But if you set up your own web page, it'll never get hacked. Unless you kind of make some mistakes or pick an easy password like password. But still, you can have your own web page. If you use the code KRAYZ, K-R-A-Y-Z, you get $20 off your first year. When you're at the office, do you often run to the vending machine for snacks? Those things are terrible for you. Instead, have snacks delivered to you. So go to Graze.com. Graze.com has healthy snacks that you can decide what kind of snacks you want, how often you want them, whether they get delivered to you, or if you choose them every time. I myself get the subscription box every 2 weeks so that I have healthy things to eat when I'm at work. You can get a free box by using the code CORYS3R5P. Matter of fact, use that code your fifth and your first box are free. Again, that's CORYS3R5P. If you'd like to advertise on any of the Solitaire Rose Podcast Network shows, you can. Just send us an email at solitairerosenetwork@gmail.com. Thanks. And I'm doing tons of podcasts, as I said earlier in this episode. See? It's a callback. Matter of fact, you can hear about them here. The Solitaire Rose Radio Network has all sorts of podcasts for you. There's, of course, Crazy Comics and Stories, where myself and Crazy Joe Ryder get together once a week to talk comics. We review comics, we talk about upcoming comics, we talk about comics history, anything that has to do with comics, we're going to talk about. We also have Series in Review, where we review series and kind of give a DVD commentary of past comics that we've enjoyed. There is also Solitaire Rose Radio. Solitaire Rose Radio is my solo show where I discuss upcoming comics, past comics, comics history, and interview comics creators. These are all at crazycomics.solitairerose.com. There's also the podcast I'm proudest of. That's Novelcast, where I take the novels that I have written and turn them into audiobooks. That's at novels.solitairerose.com. Over at Bad Advice, myself, Dan Moore, and Wolfie B. Bad take your questions and give you bad advice. It's at badadvice.solitairerose.com. Now, don't think that I'm doing all the podcasts, because there's also Scrabbling Across the West by Dave Coffell and Stephanie Coffell. Dave is a musician and Stephanie is his wife. They travel the country performing music and playing Scrabble over at scrabbling.solitairerose.com. And finally, the newest member of the Solitaire Rose Radio group, that's Fantastic Forecast, where myself and host of For the Love of Comics, Adam Vermillion, go over the series The Fantastic Four, 4 issues at a time. That's available at fantasticforecast.solitairerose.com. If you would like to advertise on any of these podcasts, you can. Just email me at solitairerosenetwork@gmail.com. Thanks. And now we get to Joe's favorite part of the show. No, not where I teach him how to clean his pocket knife from all the gunk he's got on it from cutting open Amazon packages. No, it's Joe. What's going on the eBays?
Well, for me, it's eBay packages, obviously. Yep, things are going pretty good. Couple interesting books sold. Adventure of the Jaguar, number 13. This one is back in the Archie days. Archie owns it, but they called it Radio Comics. And I think Jaguars made a couple appearances, like when they brought all the Archie line over to DC. So they're still working on it. But I had a beat up copy and priced it accordingly. And I mean, if you got a near mint one, they're over $60. Mine just went for a mere $5 because somebody peeled off the coupon on the back for some contest, and I buy Gumby. I hope the kid who did that won. Another set, we've talked about it in the past. Steve Bissett's Tyrant series, only 3 issues published before it just stopped. And I had a run that not only were included the 1 through 3, but also a number 3 that was a signed gold variant. This was all the way back 1994. Without the signed variant, not really worth a lot, but it's kind of fun to sell. I talked about this one on review a while back. It didn't make the cut for me to keep, but from Source Point Press, Ogre 1 through 3, which was came out just last year. A good comic run that surprisingly not a lot of people picked up on, but the price was going kind of high on the eBay, so I priced mine out. I do have the Supergirl Silver Age omnibuses.
Omnibuses.
So I figured I'd sell my DC Showcase Presents, because the Omnibuy are in color and these were only in black and white. And somebody sent me a very nice note and said, hey, I missed your 10% off sale. Would you consider selling it for 10% off? About $15. I said, sure. Sent him a counter offer, and then he came back. Oh, I didn't see you had number 2 going. Would you do that for 15 as well? Well, sure. You buy something from me once, I'm more than willing to give you a deal. See how easy it is when I sit there and I tell you, just if you see something, especially as a listener of this here podcast, just drop me a note. Let me know, and I'm willing to cut you a deal. I pretty much got everything at free shipping anyway, so that's not even a deal. I did sell 2 more of my Marvel Visionaries, number 4, which actually came back when I originally sold it because there were 2 pages that had little rips on it that I wasn't aware of. So I took pictures of the rip to reprice it and sold it. Same guy bought a volume 3 I had. And this was, of course, the Hulk run that Peter David Dunn did. So couple other miscellaneous things that sold. I had a book back from the Hot Comics days, BattleTech, The Killing Fields, book 2. This is one of the paperbacks, and they're not expensive, but I don't sell it. I Hate Fairyland number 3, cover A. That's not the dirty word there. I had Mighty Thor number 700 that had Chris Helmsworth on it as the photo cover. That was kind of cool. I did sell a run of Star-Lord. The 3rd series from Marvel came out 2016. That only 6 issues, and it was kind of a, I think, an origin story. I don't recall. It was so long ago that I read it. Let's see, other good fun things. Sabrina the Teenage Witch, number 4 from 1997. I had Melissa Joan Hart on the cover back when she was doing the show. I put up a bunch of Marvel Master prints. These are comic book size. They're kind of like trading cards, I guess. And the first one sold, I think I mentioned, Marvel Master print by Tim Bradstreet, doing the Punisher, of course. I also had a couple Gargoyle TV show promo sheets from 1994, back when Disney was pushing these, and I ended up selling those as well. The most interesting thing I sold, though, and the reason why I find it interesting, this was the first thing I ever bought for Crazy Comics. What they do is, a lot of times when you set up a comic account, they always are sending you advanced solicitations. If you ever look in previews and you're buying things, sometimes it'll say this item's been advanced solicited, which means your comic shop either has already ordered it, or it may be coming, or it may be in the store, because anything that has order quick, that's how they do it. In this case, it was a Lady Death, a motion picture DVD from 2004, an animated film. Never watched it. It was the first thing I ever ordered for my shop. I never did sell it. Originally, a whopping $29.99. Cory, let me make sure I got one, because I was on vacation. All right, got 9 cents. I'll owe you a penny. For 9 cents plus 1, how much do you think I sold this for?
The Lady Death DVD?
Yes.
$20.
Nope. A mere $10.
Wow.
And that was only because it was new in the original shrink wrap. There are open ones you can get on the eBays for less. I never did watch it, so I'll never review it. Who knows? Maybe I'll find a cheap copy somewhere if I ever do. More stuff going up all the time. If you see anything you like, give me a here listen. I might, I'll do something. Maybe toss in a freebie. I've still got some keys for the Strode compound. Although you may not, we'll wait till Cory's back working, 300 hours a day before I start giving those out. So KRAYZ, come get some. And
now we get to my favorite part of the show. No, not where I leave because, not me leaving because I got a big old box of potato chips from Central Illinois.
Yeah, that would do it.
I better double lock the door. No, it's freaking a geeking, Joe. What are you freaking on?
Not really much of anything. I think I mentioned Hip Watch. I got my date, December 11th. So a day that will live in infamy. Famous, and infamous. Forget it. It doesn't matter. But if you're interested in co-hosting the podcast with Cory, now's your chance. How can people get a hold of you, Mr. Strode, to say, hey, I would like my chance at immortality to join this national treasure, because we are a national treasure, and become part of history?
By sending me an email at solitairerosenetwork@gmail.com, subject co-host.
Yep. And I'm looking, it should probably be the same. I imagine I'll be gone. How long was I gone last time? 4 weeks? I don't remember. Because I do know it did get painful to actually sit at a computer. So, I wasn't eBaying. I wasn't doing any co-hosting I wasn't sneaking off and doing other podcasts. So this is your chance. And, of course, I haven't forgotten, because it's Hip Watch 2.
Electric
Boogaloo. We're not going to make that mistake twice. Pretty much that's it. Cory, what are you freaking on?
I have a few things. First, I read a headline I never thought I would ever see.
Oh, boy.
Rob Liefeld quits Youngblood over dispute with co-owner.
Uh-oh.
Joe, did you know somebody else owns part of Youngblood?
I do now.
I guess he sold part of Youngblood at some point in the 90s, and it is traded ownership, and Youngblood is now co-owned by Andrew Rev. Joe, do you know who the Andrew Rev is? Does Joe know?
Well, it's not fair because you did tell me in advance, but I'll plead ignorance as I'm wont to do. I have no idea. It's not anybody I remember meeting. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Know what I mean? Know what I mean?
Andrew Rev is the financier who bought Kamiko after it went into bankruptcy the first time and drove it into bankruptcy 2 more times.
Yikes.
And the reason I remember that so well is because at the last Cap City conference, he was working the Kamiko table and was pitching on the, I don't know how many times they'd rebooted the Elementals. But they were rebooting the Elementals without Bill Willingham. And he was, doing the sales pitch. And I said, well, wait a minute. You published the Elementals and had this big, huge story you were doing. You're not going to finish that. How can I go to the readers of the Elementals and say, oh, the Elementals is back. It's only been gone for a year, but it's back. And the new story will have nothing to do with the old story, when they've been complaining about the fact that you started a big story and they never got an ending. How can I sell them when last time, the last 2 times it's been published, it ended on a continued story and never finished? And behind him, this 19-year-old kid who was drawing said, dude, tell him whatever you need to. I just need to make some money to pay rent. The Elementals.
This was the important thing about Cory and me at these shows, where Cory was going around stirring pots. I was trying to grab free swag. So.
Well, I was basically saying, look, tell me how I can sell this, and he didn't have an answer. So Andrew Rev, still involved in comics. I guess he is a co-owner of Youngblood, and he was throwing his muscle around, and Rob Liefeld said, well, why should I put all my time and energy into it if I don't own the whole thing? Andrew Rev, who put out a release basically saying, hey, Alan Moore, I know you've retired from comics, but do you want to come back and do Youngblood?
I think you'd do better if you asked him quietly instead of loudly.
I think you'd do better if you asked John Lennon.
Yeah, might get a better response.
Because John Lennon's not going to put a curse on you like Alan Moore will. We don't get into politics on this very much, but Donald Trump is putting tariffs on everything coming from China, including your commie books. Most of your hardcovers and bigger trade paperbacks are printed in China because it's much, much cheaper to do it there. Well, guess what's going to be subject to tariffs? That's right, the books that are published in China. We have not heard yet if that means that DC, Marvel, and other companies will be raising the prices of these books, or if they will eat the cost, or if they'll find another publisher. When I talked about this online, someone said, well, they should just publish them here in the U.S. There aren't publishers that can do it in the U.S. anymore because nobody's getting these books published in the U.S. All of the people who published these sorts of things, the U.S. never had them. They never had people who published books like the omnibuses. It's a new thing. There were never any publishers. I don't mean, like Marvel and DC. I mean the people who actually run the printing presses. So we will see what happens with that. Another thing, I picked up the last of the Walmart books before now they're going to be relaunched, and now they'll be at Target comic shops. And as I'm flipping through at the Walmart to see how they're going to end each one, because some of the reprints end in the middle of a story, the thing I noticed is all of the modern reprints were dark. And I don't mean just, oh, they're a little dark. No, I mean, they didn't use any primary colors. It was all black, brown, gray, dark blue, to the point where there were some of them where you actually had to move to get in direct light in order to see what was going on. And I posted on the Facebooks about this, and I can't tell you how many people agreed with me, including Bill Sienkiewicz. So I really wish that comic publishers would realize that not everything has to happen in the middle of the night at the bottom of a coal mine. When I read older comics on my tablet, especially Marvel and DC from like the 80s and 90s, colors are bright, characters are bright, things happen during the day. The art is better now, it's more detailed now, but the coloring, because everything being dark is so much cooler, a lot of that detail is getting obscured. And because everything is dark all the time, it all looks the same. In a lot of ways, I wish somebody would just go through and say, all right, for at least 2 months, we're going to have a sun in the sky in the DC universe, because there's been an eclipse going on since 2004. Last thing I want to mention is that comic artist Ernie Colon, who has worked on tons and tons of comics, passed away while we were on break. I first came across his work without knowing it. He drew Richie Rich and most of the Richie Rich spinoffs in the 70s. Then when Harvey went away, he worked for Warren and DC, drawing Amethyst Princess of Gemworld. Over at Marvel, he drew, what was the name of that book? Damage Control. And in recent years, he's done graphic novels that sell outside the comic industry, such as the 9/11 Report graphic novel, the Warren Commission graphic novel. He was in talks to do what is the most recent big government report?
Oh, the Euler report?
Yeah, the Euler report. He was in negotiations to draw that. Did not know he had been battling cancer for the last few years. So another of our Silver Age artists has passed away. I always liked his work on Richie Rich, and then when he went over to DC, I really liked his style. It was different from anything else that was being published. Joe, what are you geeking on?
Let's see. Well, as you alluded to earlier, I did take a quick vacation. And I say quick because Chris and I just had, what the hell? Might as well learn our explicit ratings. Shitty days at work. You know what I'm talking about. And we came home. We knew we were going up. We planned to go up Saturday. And we said, you know what? F it. Let's get the hell out of here. What's nice, because it's just Chris and I and not two kids, we were packed in a half hour and on the freaking road. I got home about, I think it was about 6 o'clock, and by 7 o'clock we were on the road. So didn't quite know where we were going, didn't have reservations. The weird thing is we're trying to look for places on the way up, and a lot of times they won't, because you're doing it now, they won't take a reservation. Did stop at one casino just south of Cloquet. I think it's called Black Bear Casino. I'd have to look it up. But we got there at 10 o'clock, and they don't release rooms until 11. And we thought, well, we could stay in and gamble for a while or walk around. We said, screw it. We kept going into Duluth. And we ended up staying at a new hotel chain called True, T-R-U. Have you heard of this, Mr. Strode?
I have not.
It is a brand new hotel experience from Hilton. They say it's vibrant, affordable. I didn't think so. Young at heart. The people were very friendly. They were energetic. It was bright. They had full breakfast. The rooms were very, it was a pretty decent room, and the only thing was, and my wife had the best comment of all, It looks like IKEA put this hotel together. And she's not wrong. You got everything you want there. Like I said, the people there were fabulous. A little expensive compared to the rest of our trip, but we were just happy to get the hell out of Dodge. You know, I'm looking now, they're saying $85, $69 there. We ended up dropping like over $200 for our room just because we wanted to get there. Our ultimate goal was achieved the next day. We had a family reunion up in Ely, Minnesota on Burnside Lake. I've talked about them. I didn't go last year because of my hip, but this year we did go, and it was great. We got up there, you see family, we talk, we eat, we take a ride out on the lake. Lake Burnside, of course, has spoiled me for all the lakes because it's deep, it's cool, it's blue, it's clear, and any other lake just doesn't cut it. My cousin rents property. He actually bought some property, refurbishing it. Kind of interesting this year because the kids of my cousin are having kids. And so there were a lot of kids running around. It was funny watching them because you had the younger kids, like 5 to 7, they all hung in a group. And then the older kids, 12 to 14, maybe older, they're all hanging around with other people or their own. So it was kind of fun. And then there was some young peanut babies. And you feel bad because the mom, you know, the kid's colicky and crying. And finally, 2 of the other moms, including my wife, stepped up and held the baby for a while and took away from the crying. So it drove my brother a little nuts because he's single. He doesn't have kids, and his nice quiet vacation is now ruined by kids playing. But, you know, I've had kids. I don't know. Do kids crying bug you, Cory, when you're like out at a coffee shop or wandering through Target?
Yeah, but I can always leave. The parents can't.
Yeah. See, to me, it doesn't. I tune it out, I guess, because I've been there. I had it. So that was fun. We did on Sunday. We took off. We went to the North Shore. Ended up in Lutsen, which is it's a town, but it's also a giant ski resort. And we had a hotel room there. During the summer, of course, there's a golf course down low. They have a gondola ride that takes you across the valley up into the high point, where you get a beautiful view, not only of forests in Minnesota, but also of Lake Superior. We invited the kids up with their boyfriends. Holly made it. Dana wasn't feeling too good, so she didn't. The next day, we ended up going into Grand Marais just to kind of waste some time. I should say that night we went into Grand Marais and we went to dinner at Sven and Ole's Pizza, which is listed as one of the top 5 pizzeria places of all time. And I enjoyed it. It was good. I don't know if it's top 5, but it was still fun. On the way back, we was like, hey, look, a mini golf course. Should we do it? Nah, I already passed it. Turn around. We turn around. We go. It was self-serve. They said, here's how much it costs. So we pointed up the cash, dropped it in, and look at that. They got goat statues. No, they don't. That's a real goat. What? Look, its mouth is moving. It was putt and pet. What you do is, as you're playing on this golf course, there are various places where you can get food for a quarter, and the goats go nuts. They go up on this extremely tall tower, and they start pulling up the food chain by themselves because it's on a rope. And you had to pull it back down, put the food in it. So it went up and up and up. And we must have dropped like $2 just watching the goats do it. And then we went over to another area. We played through. It was a little place where the goats would come and we'd feed them again. They had chickens to feed. They had geese to feed. There were chipmunks running around eating. So it was kind of funny. But just Cory, have you ever been to a mini golf course with live goats to feed?
Not with live goats, no.
Now you know with dead goats? Ooh, yeah, I hadn't thought of that. So anyways, we went back to Lutsen the next day. We did the gondola ride. The kids did the what they call it, like a slide ride, the concrete slide. It's not on rails, but it's you got the sleds that you control the speed. I would have done it, but I'm getting a little too old for that. We went back to Grand Marais. We had dinner. Kind of a late lunch at the Angry Trout. Again, look up last year's podcast because Chris and I, we went up to Grand Marais as well. Oh, we're falling in love with that place. I'm telling you, Cory, I may be up there. There is a comic person up there, though. because one of the things that we do, we like to wander around and look at the stores. There's the best donut shop that's open from Memorial Day to Labor Day. So we picked up a dozen donuts there. We wandered through an actual Ben Franklin store, which had
Wow.
I know it's still there. It's got knickknacks. It's got the toys. It's got a lot of gear to go up into the boundary waters and crafts and all that stuff. There's a few other places as well. We did. I don't know the name of the place that I went to that I saw the comics. It was a craft store, but it also had antiques, and somebody had tons of comic books. And this person wasn't pricing them oddly. They were pricing them the way they should be priced. I say this suspiciously because, as you know, one of the women who owned Hot Comics, Richfield and New Hope, before they sold out to the current owners, her and her partner moved into Grand Marais. And as far as I know, they're still there. I do not remember her last name. I mean, I know I can look it up. I got all it in my records. But I'm just wondering if she had some of this stuff. I kind of wonder about that because I also know she didn't collect things, but I don't know if she took things to sell when they decided to head north or not. But I believe it's called Flybox and Company or Upstate Minnesota, one of the two things. It's right on First Avenue West across from Birch Park Books and Gifts. So very small store. Again, for all the times I've been in Grand Marais, I never went into it, but now I guess I'll have to check it out just to see what kind of fun stuff they had. On the way back after that, we just pretty much just took our time going home. On the ride from Ely to the North Shore is Highway 1, totally repaved, very smooth. We stopped in all the little campgrounds and checked it out. It's kind of something I got from my dad in the old days where he would go to state parks and he'd look around and, that's the campground I want. Why? Well, because it's next to the bathroom and the showers. We wanted the one close to the playground or the beach. So we went to Cascade State Park, which as far as I know, I've never been because I did not recognize any of the waterfalls. Just beautiful. And it's, like you said, it's Cascades. It's just one after the other after the other. Spent a lot of time looking at the Lake Superior. We did stop at one of our favorite stops, Beaver Bay Agate Shop. And it's like it says, beaverbayagateShop.com in Beaver Bay, Minnesota. And it's been there since 1946, full of rocks, all sorts of fun things, of family-owned business. They specialize in Lake Superior agates, Isle Royale, greenstone, just all sorts of things. And just fun. One of my bookcases that keeps my Omni-Buy on the piano are two giant, lodestones where they have the crystals in the middle. They're heavy as heck. They should be for $100, and they just hold omnibuses in place so they don't fall off and become omnipiles. So that was fun. And we came back all too short and then had to go back to work. I did get a new schedule while I was gone. I got Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Got booted from my Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So Cory and I will talk off air to see how that is going to affect our schedule. Did I talk about my old hunting ground, my church, my grade school being torn down?
Yes.
Okay, I drove by and it's gone. I mean, there was like maybe a little tiny sliver of the walls that they hadn't torn down. The tower that had been sealed off since I was a kid that I never got into, I never will. I was obsessing about this thing. I was ready to jump into the construction site, danger and all, and just figure way into that thing. Won't have to worry about it because it's gone. I got to say this quietly because I never know if the gift recipients are listening or not, but I did find two big bricks. I didn't even have to break into the site. They were just laying alongside the fence, and it's a temporary fence, so I was able to bend it up and drag these things into the car. What I'm going to do is figure out a way to cut them in half and make like a display for my brother and my sister and my parents, kind of here's a piece of the actual church. I had gone by before and picked up some pieces of the steps, but to have the actual brick, I'm very excited about. So if anybody out there in podcast land knows how to cut brick, give me a quick call or just contact us through the Facebook site, Crazy Comics and Stories, and I figured out now I got Christmas gifts for everybody. And what was kind of neat is as we were up north, I was talking to my brother, and we're lamenting, that it's gone in our memories of the place. And he's like, I just wish I could have gone by and gotten a piece. And I was like, oh, I got to keep my mouth shut because I had a piece of the step and now I got something more exciting. So pretty excited about that. Other than that, I got more books and stuff to review. But, Cory, what do you think? Next week, more reviews?
Sure, we could do that.
Yeah, because, I got a whole pile of stuff that I haven't even gotten to. How about for this week? What are you geeking on?
You know how I said that DC has the current incarnation of the Walmart 100-pagers is over. The last ones came out, except they've got to do at least one more Superman, and I've heard rumors that they'll be doing 2. Those will be just available at Walmart. But now they're going to be doing books, the same books. They'll have a different cover at Walmart than they have at Target, than they have at the direct market. And at a recent conference, Dan DiDio said that they are selling so well, they are looking to expand the line up to 20 different books.
In where? Walmart's or just anywhere?
Walmart, Target, and comic shops.
I will tell you, there was that one at Target. We did, bought some stuff at Target on the way going up. What was it called? DC
Primal Force.
Yeah. Something about the back covers on that. Every copy I have seen, the back cover was just beat to hell.
Well, the rumor is that Warner has actually purchased end cap space.
No, it was printed bad.
No. Oh, yeah. But
yeah.
Warner has purchased end cap space in both Walmart and Target.
I hope so, because I've seen these toys already liquidated. And again, if you can find that first Primal Force comic, and it's $10, I would have bought one, but for $10 and the cover beat the hell. So if you can find one with a cover that doesn't look like somebody put sandpaper on it, you got yourself a decent collectible. So keep that thing safe. May go up in value. We don't know.
Well, you want to talk collectibles, Joe?
Sure.
Absolute Carnage #1 came out. Did you see what Marvel did to kind of hype it a little bit?
No.
Mark Bagley, hot artist Mark Bagley.
Hot, very hot.
Did 20 sketches, and they were randomly put into issues.
It's a good thing. I just remember back when our old buddy Nick was around, he probably would have called Marvel and said, I'm buying them all. Just the way he worked.
But I thought that was such a cool idea. It's like a comic Willy Wonka. There are going to be 20 golden tickets, and basically it's okay. Open it up. Oh, look, it's a Mark Bagley sketch. Also, because we haven't recorded in a while, I think I talked a little about the DC Kirby Bronze Age Omnibus. In the last box, I got the first volume of the Master of Suspense, which is a collection of all of the short Stan Lee, Steve Ditko stories, including he did a Western. I had no idea that Ditko had drawn a Western, but there it is. There's a 4-page Western done by Ditko. Not the best Western in the world. But one of the things that I found really fascinating is, they print all of these stories in chronological order. Ditko's stuff in the first few stories looks kind of like just your standard Atlas art. They didn't have a house style, but they really kind of did. But within 2 years, it's like, oh yeah, that's Steve Ditko, with the weird hands and the sparse background, the people looking like outsiders. Ditko found his style very quickly. I loved that book. It's another one where I sat out on the deck with a nice frosty beverage and a bunch of unshelled peanuts and just read me some old comic books. Yes, indeed, do. And the last thing I want to point out, Joe, what is your favorite video game of all time?
I'll go with Duke Nukem.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Duke
even
Nukem
back in
3D,
the old
not the original.
No,
Duke
even
Nukem
back into
3D.
the original Apogee games. I love the whole.
You mean the side scroller?
Yeah, and then into the 3D ones, first person shooters.
For me, it was Doom. Love Doom. I think I've told the story on the podcast when I bought my first PC. I actually just went to the computer store. This was, what, 94? Either 94 or 95, and I said, I want a computer that can run Doom 2. Well, what about that? I just want a computer that can run Doom 2. Well, Doom, the most recent version, new, like, it's not, it's funny how they say, oh, it's a reboot. No, it's just another Doom game, okay? There's no story. You know what the story is? Kill things.
Shoot.
Well, they put out one about 2-3 years ago. There's a new one coming out by the end of the year. But they put one out 2-3 years ago, and I bought it for my Xbox One, and I've been playing it for a little while. I beat it last weekend. I beat Doom. And the thing about Doom is, you know, they've got the final boss battle, which is always fucking impossible. Yeah, it took me, I think I fought that final boss for like 5 hours before I finally killed him.
5 hours well spent.
Doom.
And he still got our podcast out on time.
Damn right I did. Well, believe it or not, kids, you've listened to us.
Did we say Primal Age or Primal Force?
I think I said Primal Force. Is it Primal Age?
It's Primal Age. Primal Force is another DC comic. Primal Age is the name of the toy line in the comic. So there's plenty on eBay's if you're looking to get one.
There's something primal about it.
And usually we don't correct ourselves as fast. So
Joe regrets the error.
I do. Even though you said it, I regret bringing it up.
Believe it or not, kids, you've listened to us blather on about funny books for an hour and a half.
Thank you.
And as we say every week, the comic we like the least, we still like better than the comic that you like the most. Joe?
August 21st, 1965. 54 years ago tonight, as we record this, the Beatles made their only Twin Cities appearance at the Met Stadium in Bloomington. Same place that the Mall of America is now. And DJ Bill Day of WDGY was the MC. He introduced the Beatles. Their movie Help was showing at the Orpheum Theater in Minneapolis and St. Paul. And the album of the same name had just been released.
Now,
Cory,
Joe, I have a question.
Okay.
Met Stadium, was that named after the famous lumberjack Met Stadium?
It might have been, but we'll never know because it's under concrete now.
It's in the Mall of America.
I do know that if we were to try to play Beatle music right now, we'd be sued.
And we don't want to be sued.
No.
We don't want to be that famous.
I will say...
We'll let other people be sued.
Cory, what did the other Beatles say when John Lennon got married again? Oh, no. It's a shame the Beatles didn't make the submarine in that song Green. That would be sublime. And you know, the Beatles and their producer George Martin were in the studio. Paul said, hey, any idea how to end Hey Jude? John said, nah. George said, nah. Ringo said, nah. George Martin said, nah. Paul said, perfect. Cory, hit my music. But no Beatles songs.